So, the biggest question of life, one of the biggest questions in life, I'm about to answer it. Based off of my research, I watched several videos on this topic. What happens when you die? Yep, that's the question we'll be asking. And there are multiple ways a living organism will die. A living organism, you know, are born, they get old, or of course get eaten or destroyed or killed in some other way or mean and die. So, but what happens? Do you just not exist anymore? Or is there something more? I'm about to tell you the truth today. And sorry, guy after Mario Avatar, you comment on this video, don't comment, because it'll be a waste of your time. Because I have evidence against your argument essentially right there. Which I presented in a couple of other videos. Yos. Yos. But what happens when a living being like me, a cat, a spider, a fish, an alien on the other side of the universe, what happens when we croak? That will be the question that we'll be asking. So what happens? I'm going to be only explaining it for us humans. So there's a quick death or passing over, or a long way. We'll do the quick one first. So when a person or a creature is murdered, killed, eaten, basically a painful death. Before they die, the soul immediately leaves the body. Okay, for example, a lot of people who have attempted to commit suicide, or has, attempted to, or has been murdered, or was caught on a fire, or something like that, or died in a war, the soul usually leaves the body before the incident happens. Okay, that's why a lot of near-death experiences are actually from car crashes and other types of accidents. The ones that survive the incident, because the soul immediately leaves the body. Immediately leaves the body. Okay, and again, your soul writes your life. Of course, your soul is the one that dictates your life. You know, your soul decides when you truly die before you're born. Of course, stuff like life extension will probably have to change that at some point, considering that is coming in the next couple of decades. But your soul, when again, a quick death, or a quick death essentially. So when you're murdered, for example, or when a mouse is eaten by a bird, okay, those souls immediately leave the body. Not quick, very very quickly. Okay, those souls immediately leave the body. Okay, they immediately leave the body because it's not necessary anymore. Okay, but most of us are going to get the slow death. Okay, 95% of us are going to get the slow death. Okay, which is usually from a illness or disease, like cancer, heart disease, and COVID-19. These slow deaths, our souls have time to prepare for it. Our souls have time to prepare for, this body. We are again, when I talk about souls, I'm talking about soul, spirit, consciousness, your eternal mind, or anything in a similar context. Your eternal mind, soul, or spirit, or basically anything like that, leaves your body. And once it leaves your body, okay, it goes back home, which is the spirit world. Every creature's true home, every organism, every being, which again comes from us humans to fish, to horses, to other types of creatures, our true home is the spirit world. Okay, I won't be surprised if sensing AI is also included in this as well. Every living being, every conscious being, their true home is the spirit world. The true home is the spirit world. That is the, you know, every creature's true home. And most people who had near-death experiences, they had a feeling that they were home. That's where they belonged. Okay? That is because every creature's home is not this planet, because this planet is currently not heaven. Nobody wants to be on this planet because this planet is essentially hell because of what humanity is turning it into. To hell. Okay, I haven't even gotten to the what happens after the physical death. Okay, but once you know when you're gonna die, your spirit guide or a relative that comes to you in spirit informs you that yeah, your soul contract is coming up soon, and some of them will even tell you have like 2 years left to live, or you have a couple months left to live, or something like that, or if you have a disease that has a couple months to live. It is an easy way to exit this physical reality. It is an easy way to exit this physical reality and go back to the spirit world. Okay? So, when you die, when most people die, you see that they're not, and I talk about slow deaths, or when they pass on and cross over, they usually see many spiritual experiences. They see a lot of spiritual experiences. They see light, they see heaven, they see staircases, and this goes on, and they see the afterlife through months and months and months. Okay, which is what a deathbed vision is. And many people have, and many spiritual people have confirmed that these are not hallucinations. These are not hallucinations. They are not made up because, again, Tesla even said this. Once humanity starts dying to non-physical, which will be very, very soon, humanity will advance more in a decade than they did in 100 years. Which, again, he is completely right. Nikola Tesla, it seems that he knew lots about the spirit realm that modern scientists couldn't understand. He also said, another one of his famous quotes is, also, understand the mysteries of the universe, you have to think of it in vibrations. So, and again, a lot of older scientists, before the whole thing of materialism popped up was also coincided with the rise of communism and the rise of atheism, all conveniently rose up at the same time. But I already mentioned that in another video called "It Horrible Truth About Our Society" Part 2, and how communism is basically trying to install fear, especially the fear of crossing over to the spirit realm, because most people before the rise of communism was not afraid of crossing over to the spirit world. They weren't, because when they go to the spirit world, I'm gonna save that part for later. Okay, so if for example, in your final hours and of this physical body, of this physical self, your soul starts to leave the body. You start to have, your soul starts to leave the body, checks out. It's kind of like checking out of a hotel room. Okay? You gotta make sure your soul has to make sure it's prepared, it's ready, it has to make sure it's ready. It has to make sure it is prepared for when it leaves the body. It has to check if it gets everything right, am I on schedule? Am I right on schedule? Or am I wrong on schedule? Okay? Essentially, of course, I already mentioned a sudden death. So your soul doesn't immediately leave the body. And unless it's not your time yet, you usually don't come back to the physical world. You don't come back to the physical world. And again, most atheists and scientists are going to be, most of these atheists and communists are going to be in a big shock before they die. For example, the last words of Steve Jobs was, "Oh wow, oh wow," because he was seeing heaven. He was seeing the spirit world. And before you pass on, you won't be alone. Even if you have formed no relationships in your life, you're usually greeted by family members that have already passed on, even seeing family members that you never met before as a welcoming home party. Again, people see family members that they know or they never do, ancestors, spirit guides, angels, and otherworldly beings as basically a welcome home party. It's essentially a massive welcome home party, and they help you ease the transition to the spirit world. And while you ease the transition to the spirit world, one thing is going to cease to exist, and that is your ego. That's not going to exist anymore because your ego will be gone. That won't exist anymore. Okay? Ego is the one that's afraid of dying, not your spirit. Your spirit is not afraid of dying. Your soul and your spirit are not afraid of dying, but your ego is. That's the last thing it wants. The last thing it wants is for the ego to cease to exist, the ego to be sad. And at the end, the soul is freed. The soul starts to get free. And that's why a lot of people, there's people who have had like stuff like dementia and stuff, are fully able to think right before they die. They're fully able to think rationally and logically before they die. It's very, very rare, but they were able to think fully and rationally. You know, which, again, science still believes in materialism, even though there's so much evidence against materialism. For example, there was this guy who just had a stump for a brain, and he was able to think, and he was a very smart person. Okay. I think in the future, science will finally prove that consciousness does survive bodily death. Okay. Science will have to eventually come to terms that consciousness is not created by the brain. Okay. Consciousness and your brain, which is your ego, is completely separate. It is completely separate from each other. And your true mind, your true self, and your soul is completely separate. Your consciousness, your soul, your spirit, your mind is completely separate from the brain. The brain is the one that dies. Your ego is the one that dies. Of course. You don't strip yourself. I'm talking about the brain ego. The brain ego is the one that dies. Your true self, which also has a gathering of this life, is passed on. So all the good stuff, all your past life memories, they're still preserved in your immortal soul. Your immortal soul is the one that is preserving these memories. Your immortal soul is the one preserving these memories. So what happens after the physical body dies? First, you go into the spirit world. First, it starts out as a void-like world, which is the astral plane. This is the astral plane, which essentially is a void-like area. Sometimes it has stars, sometimes there's nothing there. But a lot of people who meditate know this void area very, very well. It is a place that they go to after they die. Not after they die, after they go and meditate. After they go into meditate, it is essentially, it's basically a meditation place. There is nothing there, and that is the point. There's nothing there besides you and God and nothing else. But that's only a temporary area. There's also a hellish type realm, but that's also a temporary area. Yeah. But that's if you want to go there. You are not forced to go to hell. There's no judgment. Okay? And then after you go to the spirit realm, you have your life review. You review your life. All animals and all creatures review their lives. Okay? That they chose before they're born. Did they fulfill their life's purpose? And again, there's no such thing as evil because your soul chose your life. So it's kind of like actors in a movie. Okay? Actors in a movie or video game characters. Okay? A soul can choose an antagonistic role throughout their physical life. But they won't be sent to hell because that was their purpose, was to be the bad guy. Okay, to be the bad guy, that was their purpose. So they were fulfilling their soul purpose because that's what they do. Okay, and you all learn from that experience from that life. So you have your life of you, and you basically are judging yourself. Okay, there with your spirit guides and family members as well that have passed on already. Okay, they you are the one that judges yourself. God doesn't judge you. No one else judges you but yourself. Only you judge yourself. And then you meet the council of elders. They basically grade you on how well you did your life. And it depends on if you fulfilled your life purpose. If you didn't fulfill your life purpose, you'll likely start to go on to reincarnation right away. Because you didn't do that well, so you have to go again. But if you fulfill your life purpose, you can take a break from reincarnation. Okay? Until you go do your next lesson in your next life, essentially. You go into your next lesson, and in the spirit world, there's no time. Okay? There is no time, there's no past, future, and present. It is eternity, essentially. Eternity. Okay? There is no such thing as time, because time is a thing that exists on the physical world. Okay? On the 3D space, there is time. But on the 5D space, there's no such thing as time. Okay? There's no such thing as time anymore. Okay? And when people die, clocks stop. So that, which is another weird phenomenon. Clocks stop when somebody dies. Dies. As well. Or passes on. But if you really look at the truth, okay, when I start investigating what happened after I die, because I really want to know what happened to my brother. What truly happened to him. Because, there. But I know who he is. He's in the spirit world, currently. Okay? There. And most people in spirit and the spirit world usually reincarnate back into the family. Usually come back in the family. Either they wait until all the other family or all the other group goes, or they just reincarnate back into the same family. Essentially. But we're still worried more and more about the spirit realm. And the spirit realm, there's higher and lower realms of existence as well. Which are all heavenly, otherworldly realms. You also have universal knowledge in the spirit world. Even the dumbest of creatures and beings, all have access to this human knowledge, or this universal knowledge. So it doesn't really matter what your IQ is in this physical plane, because in the spirit world, IQ does not matter. IQ does not matter at all. So IQ does not matter in the spirit world. It does not matter in the spirit world at all. Okay. Another thing is, in the spirit world, you can basically create whatever you want. Okay. For example, you can create, if you want to create a spirit body of all 5 senses, if you want to create a area and let's eat candy for 24 hour, candy, for a lot of time, okay. If you wanna be with a relative for eternity, you can, okay. If you want to be with a waifu for eternity, you can, okay. Or at least until you reincarnate. If you're, again, most of us, 99.99% of us, are going to have to reincarnate because we're not perfect. Most people are not perfect. Only very few people are truly perfect. Again, we have likely lived thousands, millions, billions, or even trillions of lives, mostly likely as lower beings. At the very conservative, the fastest runners only have 100 or so lives under their belts. And they are the fast runners, the gifted ones, okay, the ascended masters. Those are the ones who have accelerated the fastest, okay? Most of the most influential people in history are ascended masters. Okay, but they keep reincarnating to better humanity, to better Earth's, to better Earth, and at the end turn Earth and the solar system into heaven. Okay, into a heaven area, so people won't have, so people can go to this area, can go to Earth and appreciate all of Earth's beauties, but also appreciate all of heaven's beauties as well. So you can go to both places essentially. But I believe most of us in the generation will be able to be a part of technology that will be able to appear to get both. Okay, but no, you should not be afraid of physical death, because you just go into the spirit world. You go into a world full of love and peace. And again, I'll talk about God. Okay, God is not a judgmental being. God loves us all and loves us all equally. Okay, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of what we did in our lives, God loves us all equally. Again, we are the ones who chose our roles in our lives. Okay, some beings chose to be evil to show us how evil, you know, man, we can be. For example, think of Hitler, think of Stalin, think of Mao, think of the Kim Dynasty, think of any horrible person in history. Okay, they chose that role in their lives as the villains to make us realize, yeah, we can do much better than the villains. We can do much better than the villains. Okay, because in a story, there's always good people, there's always heroes and villains. There's always the misunderstood. There's always the characters that have tragic backstories. Okay, every life is essentially a story. It's essentially a storyline, essentially a plot line in the larger, greater plot that is life. Okay, the larger and greater plot that is life. Okay, there. And the mystery of life is very, 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 very uncertain. Okay, it's not uncertain, unknown. Okay, but humanity's starting to finally realize that, yeah, we're eternal beings enjoying a brief physical existence. Of course, if life extension, they'll be much longer. Okay, but eternity, the you know all creatures are immortal beings. Okay, it's not just us humans. Okay, all creatures go through an afterlife process. For example, a spider is going to reincarnate much faster, okay, than a human, because a spider is on a lower realm than us. Okay, there. Okay, there in the spirit world. Okay, and there will be eventually a point for the 0.1% of people who don't reincarnate. They don't need to reincarnate ever again. But most of us are on the long haul. Okay, we're on all the long haul. Okay, we're not on the short haul. Okay, I will like to reincarnate. Most of us who is watching the video will like to reincarnate. It doesn't matter if you're watching this 200 years in the future or 1,000 years in the future. I don't know if life extension will really come out before I, croak, but, it's still something that might happen. Dad, I believe it will. Okay. Okay, so yeah, it's nothing to, most people don't understand eternity. Okay. But no, it isn't. And again, I lost my fear of physical death because I used to think when I died, it was just the end. Nothing else anymore. You had your one life, or you'd go to heaven or hell. Okay, basically the traditional Christian beliefs on the afterlife. But you don't die. Okay. You don't really actually die. Okay. For example, you talk to a lot of psychic mediums, they'll say the same exact thing. You don't die. Okay. It is a transition, and all living beings go through this transition. Okay, And I think in the future that's what schools are gonna teach, because once they find out that it's the truth, kids are like, oh yeah, I can't wait until I transition, and they'll have to understand that that's the, you know, that's the point of the brief physical existence that we all have. This brief physical existence is only a snippet of time for the soul. Only a snippet of time. Okay? I'm not okay, no, time works very differently in the spirit world. There's time, but it's basically eternity. Okay? For example. Okay? There. And the whole point of life is to grow and evolve. Okay, that's the whole point of life. That's the whole point of why people reincarnate on this planet. On this planet, essentially. And, there's a lot of things that we don't know. So what happens after we die? Okay, we go to the spirit world. We meet it. Have a life of you. Okay, we meet with guides and elders and otherworldly beings. Here. And most people who have went to the spirit world were happy. Okay, most people in spirit were happy. Okay, there were most communicators with spirit are not sad or angry, Dale. And I think society is gonna finally realize that there is some type of existence after we die. Okay, it's a natural thing that happens. Okay, a natural thing that happens essentially in this physical world, in this world, that we are all, including our pets and other creatures, are all multidimensional creatures, all multidimensional species. And I think that the truth of that is starting to realize that. A lot of people who talk about this stuff, it is basically a revolution is coming. Okay, a revolution is going to come within our lifetimes. When people will realize the truth. Okay? And the fall of atheism and communism will be defeated by the truth. The truth always prevails. Okay? The truth always prevails over lies. Okay? And, what happens is you set your vessel. You set this vessel that you were, born with. Of course. You're born into this vessel. You existed before, and again, there are people who now remember their pre-existence. Okay? There are people who now remember online, they picking their lives, their own pre-existence, their own pre-mortal life, essentially. They remember all this stuff. And yeah, the veil is essentially Vinny. A lot of souls and a lot of spirits are saying the veil is Vinny. And yeah, it is. Okay? People have a lot of ways now they can communicate with spirits. I wouldn't be surprised within our lifetime a lot of people have actual direct communication with the spirit, as well. Well, so yeah, we're in some very, very, very exciting times. Okay. There was an afterlife and there was a before life, and yeah, when you die, you basically, death is just a transition. It is not the irrefutable state of existence. It is not the end, essentially. Okay, the perfect analogy is like a snake shedding its skin. Okay, you're being free from the constraints of the body. Okay, of the physical. You're being free with the constraints and going on to heaven, having a life of you, most likely planning your next life. and then reincarnating, likely within your family or in a place of the spiritual guide's choosing, or of the spiritual guide's existence, or your choosing as well. For example, if you want to reincarnate, and most likely it will be by the soul group's choosing as well. The further the evolution. And I do believe there are places that are probably better to go to than Earth. There's an infinite amount of planes, an infinite amount of universes, and an infinite amount of planets you can reincarnate on. Okay? There are planets that are far harder and far worse than Earth. There are planets that are far easier than Earth. Okay? Again, most religion has thus a view on us because we're the only alien species that we know so far. Okay? But yep, that's what truly happens. That's what truly happens. So, yep, that's what happens after physical death. You die, your ego dies, but your spirit does not. It is like it's like your avatar is dying. It's like, game over. Okay, game over. For your avatar. Game over for your character, but the actor does not die. Does not die as well. You're like the actors in the movie or characters in the video game. Okay. You die and you respawn. Okay. Or in terms of actor, you change characters. Basically. Okay. Life is basically one whole big MMO. Okay. Everybody's trying to navigate this big MMO that we all play. Okay. And yep, that's basically it. It isn't very complicated. You die, you go to the spirit world. And again, the spirit world is a very, very, very different place than the earthly reality that we live in. So, enjoy life, live life to its fullest, of course. And remember, we have to spread the divine love of God. That is one of our purposes. And again, it's very, very hard dealing with the ego. It is. It is very, very, very difficult to deal with it. But once humanity learns the truth, they learn how to deal with the and they'll finally figure out that, hey, this is just what happens. Okay, and again, it will be the end of materialism. It will be the end of organized religion as well. Okay, and again, when people see when they claim they see Jesus or when they have a hellish experience, it's what they expect to see, as well. When they it's what they expect to see. I'll talk about that in the near-death experience video. So that's basically it about this video. Goodbye.